Got to start my IG too. I'm doing IG and Facebook Live. Hey, everybody. Hi. I am Dr. Randy B, MD, your board certified pediatrician and financial wellness expert, where I provide your RX to wealth and financial well-being through my coaching programs, my speaking engagements, and my #1 best-selling book, Ladynomics, a woman's prescription for wealth and financial well-being. And in the next couple of weeks, I'll be able to say I have 2 books. Yes, my next book is coming out. I am so excited. So make sure you follow me on all social media at Dr. Randy B, MD. Okay, so you can find out everything about my new book that is due to come out in the next couple of weeks. It's a follow-up to Ladynomics. It's really based on, like commentary, basically what people have been asking for. So I've done volume 2, so I'm really excited about it. So I'll be a 2-time best-selling author. I'm claiming it because you guys are going to buy it. But anyway, so today I am going to talk about, and another thing, I apologize. My talks have been every 2 weeks because I have another commitment every other Thursday. So that's why everything has kind of been like every other week, because I do something else on, like I said, every other Thursday, and it's great. It's part of my pediatric world, but I love it. So you'll be seeing me bi-monthly or every other week. Hi, how are you? Thanks for joining me. I'm doing Facebook and IG at the same time. So today, what I'm talking about is money. How do you make, what money moves to make while you're in your 40s and 50s and beyond? Okay, it is time that I may give some love to my peoples. See, I got my MTV shirt on. You see it? You see my MTV shirt? Because I'm part of the MTV generation. If you're in your, I love it, right? If you are in your 40s, maybe you're barely an MTV person, but I was around for the very first episode of MTV, okay? I wasn't a teenager yet, but I remember the first episode, okay? I remember those early videos. So I'm giving shout out to all the MTV generation and the money moves that we should be making. Oh, hi, who's this? Write your name down. I don't know who this is on Facebook. I can't see your name. So write your names. I can give you a shout out. But yes, I'm going to talk about things that you should be doing right now. And it's funny. I love the question about the trust. It wasn't part of my top 5, but I'm going to add it because that's important. Very, very, very important. But some of the things that you need to start doing when you're in your 40s, and I talk about this because I know plenty of women, and including myself, considering that I went to medical school late in life. I started medical school at 35. I'm in my 50s now. So one of the reasons why, I've gone on this journey is I wanted to share everything that I have learned or that I'm applying to my life to others, because I see a lot of women who are in their 40s and 50s who are not quite where they should be financially, because look, retirement for us, especially if you're in your 50s, is not that far away, okay? I want to retire when I'm 65. If I work to 70, that's because I want to, not because I have to, right? So you got to start making moves now. If you're in your 40s, great. You have a time span of like 20 plus years. But if you're in your 50s, you really got to get cracking. And that's what I'm doing. I'm cracking myself to really get it together, because the last thing I want to do is find myself having to work because I still have debt. I still don't have enough money in savings. The average, when I wrote my book 2 years ago, the average American had $120,000 in retirement savings. And, that may seem like a lot of money, but if you think about it, if you retire at 65 and your life expectancy is for like another 20, 25 years, that's not a lot of money. I mean, 120, I'm taking out my calculator, over 25 years. No, that is not a lot of money. That's only $4,000, nearly $5,000. Yes, you invested, you may get some more interest, or maybe it bumps up to maybe $6,000 or $7,000, but that's per year. That's per year. So if you are like in, at retirement age, you still have a lot of debt. You still got to pay rent, or a mortgage, or whatever. You still have living expenses, and something else you got to think about is healthcare expenses. You really got to make sure that you start getting the plans in place so that you are somewhat set at that time. I mean, we're all doing everything we can to stay healthy, but things happen as we get older. I mean, we know that. You can be the best conditioned 50, 60-year-old. You're out there exercising every single day. You are eating healthy. You're not drinking, smoking, but something still can happen. You can still have a heart attack. You can still, experience something, a fall. Anything can happen. You could have a job loss. All right. Things can happen at that later age. And the problem is you don't have much time to kind of bounce back. That's the issue. I had a friend who lost her job, she was in her late 50s or mid 50s, and she went through a difficult time. She used to say, oh God, if I could just wait, wait until I'm at 62, things will be better, because that's when I could start drawing down, you could start, getting Social Security at that age. So she just could not wait. She could not wait. But from 58 to that time, she was going to be struggling. And, I've met other people in their 50s, had a child in college, no money saved up for retirement, none. We think about Social Security. You always hear about Social Security not being around. I don't necessarily believe that. I feel that it will, but I don't count on it. I really don't. When I think about my savings, when I do my savings, when I look at my 401k and I do my projections and everything, I don't count Social Security in that. That's extra. Okay, that'll be extra. That'll be money I could put towards things that I want to enjoy, or, like eating out, traveling. But I don't count that at all. My projections are based on what I plan to save each year based on my time period. So let me get into the now six top tips, things that you need to be doing when you're 40 and older. Okay, start saving now. Okay, if you haven't started saving towards retirement and you're employed, or even if you're self-employed, because you can put a lot of money away when you are self-employed, right? And like those solo 401ks, those things. Start doing that now. Do not delay. If you are employed and you work with a company like my organization, they give, they match whatever I put in. So you want to take advantage of that. That is free money, free money. You want to start doing that now. Okay. I don't care how much it is. If you can afford to set aside $100 a month or $50, start saving, start doing something, because and I talk about this all the time, the earlier you start saving, the more you can take advantage of compounded interest. And compounded interest is basically the money that you make on the money that you have on your principal. So if you put in $1,000 and you have your money, you put in $1,000 over a year, you have an interest rate of 8%, you're going to have $80 extra of interest income for that year. If that money stays in there, the beginning of the year, you have $1,080, At the end of the year, you'll have interest on that $1,080. So it'll be, I don't know, maybe $1,170. So it adds up, and that's how you accrue money. That's how your savings adds up. So start now. The earlier you do it, the better. There's a lot of financial advice out there that says you should, before you start savings, before you start putting money in 401ks, you should pay off all your debt and then start saving. But when you're in your 40s and 50s, you can't really do that. You just, in your 20s, yes, if you're in your 20s and you graduated from college with, say school loans or credit card debt, yeah, you can afford to take 5-6 years of no savings, except for maybe your emergency fund, of no retirement savings. You can, you can do that. But when you're in your 40s and 50s, you cannot afford to do that. That's why I don't give that advice, because I definitely don't follow it because I am not going to miss out on my compounded interest and on matching that I receive, because that is free money, which is going to help build up what I can. So, like my percentage, I put a bucket towards savings. I do a bucket towards debt reduction, and then, a much smaller bucket towards, fun things to do. But that's how I do it. I can't go in and say, oh, I'm just going to stop putting money aside, because that's I want to retire at 65. My plan is to, have my money, have my goal of, my retirement savings at 65 and be completely debt free prior to that. No, I'm not going to, my goal is to do it much sooner than, 15 years, 14 years now. But the goal is, when I retire, I am complete, no school loans, no mortgage, definitely no consumer. I mean, that's gone. No consumer debt, no car note, nothing like that. All that debt gone. Okay. Because the beauty about when you have no debt and all you have is income, you can live. I mean, you could live any way you want. I mean, say if you have income, I don't know, maybe about $4,000, $6,000 a month from, what you save, and, maybe Social Security, that kind of pension, if you get pension. And say you say, well, it's, I can't, live like, say, in New York or California. You can move somewhere else. And all you have is that you have your income to do whatever you want. You could still collect all that income and then, say, move to the Caribbean or something like that, right? Where it's much cheaper to live. You have that freedom. And that's the beauty. So you really want to get to a point where you're completely debt-free, completely nothing, and you just have income, because you will have much, much more choices. But savings is important. And like I said, don't count on Social Security. I believe it's still going to be around. I think there's a lot of scare tactics in that, but I definitely do not consider it in my planning. And if you want to know what your projection, what you're projected to receive on a monthly basis based on when you retire, you could retire at 62, at 62, 67. And I think if you decide to start drawing from, Social Security at 70, you can go onto the Social Security website and ask for that information. They used to send it out in the mail. They probably don't do that anymore. But you can find out what you may get at that point. So, but don't count on it. Try and do what you can on your own, income ability. The other thing is, and this is a little controversial topic, especially since I'm not a parent and I don't have children who are in college. But if you're like in your late 40s, 50s, and you have kids in school and you have nothing saved up for your retirement, you got to be super, super, super creative with your children's education. Okay. Because college is expensive. It is, some of the debt that kids are coming out with nowadays It is absolutely crazy. I've heard 160, $200,000 for an undergraduate degree. When I graduated, I went to a state school, but when I graduated, I mean, that was not the average. It was much, much less than that, much doable. So it is sad. So, parents have this obligation to definitely cover their children's expenses. But if you're like in that age and you have nothing saved up, you got to be real. Like, you got to do some serious legwork. You got to look for scholarship grants. There's tons of scholarship. Like, you really have to do your research. You may have to consider a less expensive school. If maybe you got to do community college for 2 years. Maybe you have to do a state school. I went to SUNY Buffalo, and New York State has some really great state schools, really great. California is another one. Great colleges. And my tuition was $2,400. Was it $2,400 a year? It might have been $4,000, like $2,000 a semester, $4,000 for the year. That was back in, like I went to school in the 80s. Okay, I went to college in 87. I was talking to a student who attends a SUNY school now, and I think it's $3,000 per semester. It's like $6,000 or $7,000 for if you're in state, if you're a resident of New York State. That is fantastic. That is fantastic. And now many states are given free tuition if you're a resident. New York State has it. It's called the Empire State Scholarship. I think some other states are having it. So if you live in one state and you know that you want to contribute as much as to your child's education, but you really don't have the funds, and you know that you got to start putting some money away from your retirement, because even if your kids got to take out some school loans, they'll have the ability to pay it back. But if you're 60, your ability to save enough money to retire off of kind of goes down. Okay, so you got to really think. I'm in some groups, and someone will post, "Hey, should I, start saving for retirement? Should I, pay for my child's education?" And many of the people say straight out, "Your retirement. Take out loans. Have your kids take out loans if they need to. They'll be able to pay it back." But that's a tough thing, because you don't want your child to start out burdened with like $200,000 in school loans, and they get a job paying $60,000 a year. So I really hope they do something on that front, on the political scene, because it's ridiculous. And but that's a whole nother conversation. But you got to be creative. If that means you got to pick up and move somewhere, if you got to pick up and move to California, if you got to pick up to move to New York, or some other maybe low cost, there's pros and cons with that, another low cost area, so that you can do everything that you want. You may have to do that, like move to the South where it's a lot cheaper to live. You may have to do that. Start thinking ahead. Start thinking about the things that you can do if you cannot do all the way you want or what you plan at the same time. The other thing is cut expenses. Okay, if you need to bump up your retirement savings, now is the time to cut expenses. Okay, it's great to live your life. It's wonderful to want to do everything that you want to do, but if you do that at the expense of your future, and I'm not saying you should never, like I told you, my allocation of money is savings for retirement, eliminating debt, and like utilities, that kind of thing, and a little money for playthings. Like I love to travel. That's a non-negotiable for me. I love doing things like that. I don't necessarily believe in, being 100% one way, but I do understand that because I am, I need to do some catch up from the time I was, the 7 years or 8 years that I sacrificed, all that earnings that I sacrificed to become a doctor. I know I got some catching up to do. So that's what I'm doing. So I got to sacrifice on that, because the more I do now, and yes, life isn't guaranteed, but the more I do now, later on, I can enjoy these things, and I can enjoy them stress free. Okay. I always use my mother as an example. My mother retired early, debt free. She just lives off of her savings, and she's enjoying life. I mean, not stressed out at all. That's the kind of life I want to live. That's the kind of life, and that's the kind of life that I want everybody to have access to live. Okay. The other thing is, and I'm going to, someone asked about trust. If you have assets, now is the time to sit down with a lawyer to protect those assets. You need to have a will. You need to, if you want to, put your things in a trust, you need to have healthcare proxy. You need to get all of that done. You need to know, you need to put down in writing your wishes. Okay. You got to do that. Like this is an area I need to step up. But again, I don't have children, so it's a little different, but still I do have wishes. I still have desires of of the things that I own. I want to know, I want my wishes to be known, and I want it to be official. But we sat down a couple of years ago with my mother. We sat down, my brother and I and my mother, we sat down together. We sat with the lawyer, drew up her will, drew up her trust. So we know exactly what her wishes are. It's down on paper. It was witnessed by an attorney. Do those things now. I don't care, if you have your 401k at work, make sure your beneficiary information is updated. Make sure, like I said, you have a will, a trust, definitely a healthcare proxy. All right. Whether that could be a husband, like I'm my mother's healthcare proxy because I'm a physician, and, my brother felt more comfortable with me having that role. Get those so that should something happen, because we are getting older, we're not as, we're young, but we are getting older. And should something happen, we want to be treated, and we want our assets to be treated according to the way that we want. So you sit down and you speak to someone. And another thing that I shared today, and this wasn't on I guess I got a top 7, make sure you have insurance, life insurance, so that should something happen to you, whether you're incapacitated or you die or something, if you die, you don't leave the financial burden of like your burial and your debt to your family, especially your kids. So you try and do what you can. Like I see tons of GoFundMe accounts. 20 years ago, you didn't see that. Now you see it. And it's just like, wow, insurance can be really cheap. A term life insurance policy is very cheap, much cheaper than a whole life. Disability, the earlier you get disability, it's cheaper. But I feel like disability insurance is critical. Okay. Especially if you're like a single mother, or not even like, especially if you have kids, but if your income, if you're like unmarried, I'm unmarried, I have a partner, but I don't expect for him to take care of me. Hi, put your name, because I can't see your name. Hi, whoever just said hi, Dr. Mandy. I'm not expecting him to take care of me, right? So if I'm incapacitated, my disability will kick in, and I will be able to still live and be able to take care of myself. So disability, especially if you are working. Oh, hey, Dr. Kalani. Hey. How are you? Thanks for joining. So yeah, those things are so, so important. Don't sit back and just don't allow life to happen, because it's sad. I told the story of my father. My father was disabled, and he, he wasn't like this professional who had all this, all this information. But one thing he knew, that he did not want to, like, if he should pass away, he did not want the burden of a funeral to be on us. And, he took out this little policy, those little death benefit policy that you see on TV. It was cheap. It was like, I don't know, I think $5,000-$6,000 or whatever. It was like $30 a month. I was responsible for paying it. And, you know, I'm in my 20s and a little irresponsible. So there were times I wouldn't pay the premium, and he would get, you know, he would get these late notices. Like, and he'll say, Randy, you better pay these things because I took this out for your benefit, not for the benefit for me, because I'm not going to be here. And I mean, I was like, okay. So I caught up on my premiums, and would you know it, my father passed away not too long after I paid up that, got right back on track. Okay, so, and as a result, my family did not have to come out of their pockets to pay for my father's funeral services. The insurance policy took care of that. So, I mean, if he could have that kind of insight, definitely we should be able to do the same thing, you know, especially if you are a professional, especially, you know, if you have assets, if you have a nice salary, if you have some money set aside, start planning. Do not leave things by the wayside, so that whoever's left behind. Yes, it is a blessing. I'm telling you, the foresight that man had, and it was so funny because my brother and I, we were young. I was 30 when my father passed away. My brother was in his 20s, and I remember, you know, the aunts, right? Because they see we're young. You know, my parents were separated at the time. Separated, but they've been separated for years. And I remember, you know, everybody came together and they're like, oh, we got to think about, you know, how we're going to pay for all this stuff. And I was like, oh no, daddy had a insurance policy. It's all taken care of. And you should have seen the shock that registered on everybody's face. I still remember that. They're just like, okay. So, and that's not happening in a lot of households. It's not happening, especially with COVID. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening, unfortunately. So yes, hindsight is 2020. Absolutely. It is always 2020. It's always 2020, but you're doing yourself a favor for whoever you leave behind to have your finances, to have your estate as clean. That's the word I'm using, as clean and as thought out as possible. So start thinking about those things, especially in the year that we had this past year. A lot of people lost a lot of loved ones. There was a lot of deaths. And I can imagine some of the conversations that took place in a lot of people's homes. So I'm just going to do a rundown. When you are in your 40s, your 50s, see, MTV generation people, that's me. Start saving something now. Take advantage of matching. If you're working, take advantage of self-employment, like those solo 401ks. Take advantage of that. If you're in your 50s, you can max out on your 401k if you're able to 26.6, I believe. Much more, $6,000 more than everyone else who are younger than that. So that's another way to catch up. That's why they do it, so you can catch up. So you start doing that now. You take advantage of compounded interest the earlier you start, and matching if your job allows that. Don't count on Social Security. I do believe it will be there. You know, like I said, I think it's a scare tactic that, you know, politicians use, but I think it's going to be there, but don't count on it. Okay, do your calculations, your projections without that. And if you should happen to have it, great. That's extra money. That could be play money. That can be, you know, travel money. That can be going out to eat money. You don't have to think about, you know, the bulk that you have to, you know, your main stuff like your pension, and who gets a pension nowadays? That's another thing. But anyway, you know, your savings, your 401k, your retirement savings, your Roth account, all that. That's what you would live off, and Social Security would be extra. Okay. Another thing, if you're in your 40s and 50s, you know, a lot of families started having children later in life. But if you're in your 40s and 50s and you have college age kids who might be going to college, you got to be super creative. You got to be super, super duper creative. Start thinking about ways you can do everything you want to do. You got to have your goals and set. You got to have your goals in mind, but to not have anything set aside and then wanting to take on all of your kids' college expenses might be like a daunting task. So start thinking about ways. You may have to move to a lower cost area of the country. You may have to take on a second job. You definitely got to cut expenses. You got to do some serious research into scholarship, grants, loans. Remember, that's what you got to do. Don't feel bad. Your kids have a whole lifetime to pay it off. You do not have that time, right? Again, now is the time to cut expenses. Yes, you do some things that bring you joy. I love concerts. I love traveling, but my days of maybe traveling somewhere to go to a concert, I probably won't be doing a whole lot of that anymore because I used to do that a lot. So I may not be doing stuff like that. So you got to really, you got to cut down those things because my goal, hey, Veronica. So my goal is to be completely debt-free, meaning school loans, mortgage, consumer debt, nothing, no debt by the time I retire. My goal is to accomplish that much sooner than my projected retirement age. But by the time I retire, I don't want nothing. All I want is my income. Because once you do that, you have so much freedom. You have so much. It's wonderful if you can experience that now. But if you're in a different spot, try to make that your goal. You want to be completely debt-free by retirement age. If that means you got to push it back a little bit, so be it. You may have to do that. But that's the goal. That's what you should be working for. I have my little stories, but I know a doctor who had to work late in life because he had a lot of expenses late. And, when I used to talk to him, I used to say, he used to say, I have to work. Not because I want, I'm sure he loved working, but he said he had to work. You should not say that in your 70s. You should not have to say that you have to work because you have to, but a lot of Americans are doing that. And I think it's sad. I think it's really, really, yes, Veronica. Yes. You know who I'm talking about, right? Right. So, but I remember those conversations I used to have with him, and it was very eye-opening to me. And it really propelled me to move and do things differently. For example, I wanted to sell my house and, move into a bigger house. And I said, well, why am I doing that? My house is almost paid off. I'm in my 50s. Why am I going to take on a whole new big mortgage? Why am I doing that? That's silly. Let me start thinking about the long term. I love it. I'm comfortable. So why am I doing that? So that's, those are the sacrifices I make. And last but not least, get your financial affairs in order. Make sure you sit down with an attorney, go over wills, set up a trust. Make sure you have a healthcare proxy just in case something happens and you need someone to make healthcare decisions on your behalf. Those are the moves you got to make when you're in your 40s and 50s. My people, that's me. MTV generation. But anyway, I am Dr. Randy B, MD, your board certified pediatrician and financial wellness expert, where I provide your RX to wealth and financial well-being through my coaching programs, my speaking engagements, and my #1 best-selling book. I will soon have a second. See, this is my imaginary book, which is about to be out soon. Okay. So next time, well, maybe not next time you see me, but at some point in the near future, I'm going to be like this because I'm going to have 2 books in my hand. But anyway, I'm Dr. Randy B. Follow me on all social media at drrandybmd.com. And I will see you in 2 weeks. These lives will be every 2 weeks now. Okay. Bye.